Monoamine oxidase inhibitors are drugs that inhibit the breakdown of serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. They are used to treat atypical depression. In this video, I'll share my visual mnemonic to help you remember all the important information about monoamine oxidase inhibitors so you'll be ready for test day. We are in the kitchen of a world-renowned chef. It looks like this chef just started her culinary training as we see the word trainee stitched onto her chef coat. This trainee label should remind us of tranylcypromine. Get it? Because trainee sounds like tranylcypromine. Tranylcypromine is a monoamine oxidase inhibitor used to treat atypical depression. It shouldn't be too hard to remember trainee for tranylcypromine, right? It looks like this trainee is working up something delicious for the master chef to try. Is that fennel she's using? Sure is. Let this fennel remind us of the drug phenelzine. Get it? Because fennel sounds like phenelzine? Phenelzine, like tranylcypromine, is a monoamine oxidase inhibitor that is used to treat atypical depression. We'll talk more about this mechanism and this indication later, but for now, just remember this fennel for phenelzine. The food smells so good in this kitchen that even the mice sneak in for some nibbles. Unfortunately, they were eating too much of the trainee's food, so she set up a mouse trap to catch them. She was pretty successful in her plan as she trapped a mouse with a giant block of cheese. By the way, let this mouse remind us of monoamine oxidase, or MAO, inhibitors. And since MAO is often pronounced MAO, this mouse should symbolize MAO. And this mouse has been trapped or inhibited by the mousetrap, which should remind you that we are talking about MAO inhibition here. Monoamine oxidase is an enzyme that normally breaks down neurotransmitters, such as norepinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine, thereby decreasing the levels of these mood-regulating neurotransmitters in the brain. Phenelzine and tranylcypromine work by inhibiting MAO, thereby increasing levels of this neurotransmitter in the brain. We'll talk more about why this is important later, but for now, try to remember this trap mouse for inhibition of monoamine oxidase. Although the trainee had set up this mouse trap, she's really sad about seeing it die. But it's bittersweet sadness as the master chef pats her on the shoulder for taking care of the mouse problem. This chef in training is pretty depressed, even crying, but cheers up a little with the master chef congratulating her. Let this picture remind us of atypical depression, which phenelzine and tranylcypromine are used to treat. Atypical depression is a type of depression that is characterized by a depressed mood and several other atypical depression symptoms, such as lead-in fatigue, rejection sensitivity, and increased sleep and appetite. In contrast to regular or major depression, atypical depression is characterized by the finding of mood reactivity, or the ability of these people to still feel happy in response to a positive event. Kind of like that sad smile on our trainee here. Atypical depression is thought to result in part from decreased levels of feel-good neurotransmitters, such as dopamine and serotonin. As you might recall from earlier, phenelzine and tranylcypromine inhibit the breakdown of these neurotransmitters, thereby increasing their levels in the brain. This is obviously helpful in treating atypical depression. In summary, try to remember the bittersweet sadness of this chef here for atypical depression, which monoamine oxidase inhibitors are used to treat. Now let's move to some side effects seen with these drugs. It looks like our trainee was so focused on our mousetrap that she forgot to turn off the pressure cooker. This pressure cooker should remind us of a hypertensive crisis, which is a major adverse effect of monoamine oxidase inhibitor use. A hypertensive crisis occurs from an excessive amount of catecholamines like norepinephrine and dopamine. These hypertensive crises are more likely to occur when patients consume tyramine-containing foods, like cheeses and cured meats, which we should remember with this block of cheese on the mousetrap. Tyramine is a molecule closely related to tyrosine that can be directly converted into catecholamines and also displace or push out catecholamines from inactive storage. MAO inhibitors block the normal breakdown of tyramine. Thus, foods high in tyramine like cheese can cause a spike in catecholamine levels that leads to a hypertensive crisis in patients. That was a lot of information, but try to remember this pressure cooker and block of cheese for a hypertensive crisis that occurs with consumption of tyramine-containing foods like cheese. Since our trainee was mourning the loss of the mouse's life, our master chef is cheering her up with a pile of happy face cookies. Well, let this excessive number of happy face cookies remind us of serotonin syndrome. These happy faces should remind us of serotonin. Get it? A happy face for serotonin? Since serotonin is considered the feel-good neurotransmitter, right? Putting this all together, this excessive number of happy face cookies should remind us of serotonin syndrome, which is a major adverse effect of monoamine oxidase inhibitor use. If you recall from earlier, monoamine oxidase inhibitors prevent the breakdown of, and thereby increase the levels of, feel-good neurotransmitters, including serotonin. And we know that any drug that modulates serotonin can lead to serotonin syndrome, characterized by fever, tachycardia, confusion, hyperactive reflexes, and sweating. Due to this reason, patients taking other serotonin-modulating drugs like SSRIs or tricyclic antidepressants should especially avoid taking monoamine oxidase inhibitors. Try to remember this overflow of happy face cookies for serotonin syndrome. Okay, that's it. Let's let these chefs get back to cooking while we summarize what we've learned here. Phenylzine and tranylcypronine are monoamine oxidase or MAO inhibitors. Inhibition of the MAO enzyme increases levels of neurotransmitters, such as serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. MAOs are useful in treating atypical depression. A major adverse effect of taking these drugs is their ability to cause a hypertensive crisis after ingestion of tyramine-containing foods, like cheese. Another important side effect to remember is serotonin syndrome, which is more common if monoamine oxidase inhibitors are given with other serotonin-modulating drugs. All right, we're done with monoamine oxidase inhibitors. See you in the next one.